For more, let me bring in Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano. Explain the process. Can a sitting president be indicted?
There are two Justice Department memoranda. One says yes, and the other says no. One says you cannot indict a president while sitting. If you have evidence of crimes, you send it to the House of Representatives. That's circa 1999.
After the Clinton impeachment.
Correct. You have one a year before, written by the same team, which says, yes, you can do it. In terms of subpoenaing, I respectfully would invite Mayor Giuliani's attention to a Supreme Court opinion called United States versus Nixon, which upholds the authority of the Justice Department to subpoena the President of the United States. Look, the President is not above the law. He can be indicted like anybody else. How do we know that? Because Ken Starr waived a sample indictment in front of Bill Clinton and said, we're going to present this to the grand jury. And instead of that, Bill Clinton pleaded guilty to an information. An information is basically an indictment to which the defendant agrees. Therefore, you bypass the grand jury. Same thing happened with General Flynn and George Papadopoulos and the others who pleaded guilty in the present case. I don't know what Bob Mueller said to the mayor. I give the mayor the benefit of the doubt, but the law is there. The president can be indicted and the president can be subpoenaed, and I suggest to you the mayor knows that.
We still don't know if the president will actually just sit down for an interview with the Mueller team, right?
Well, that is optional to the president. A lot of us, Rudy Giuliani included here, have been advising that he not do it, that he temper his bravado here, because that environment is dangerous to him. When prosecutors interview you, it's not to help you, it's to help them. And the freewheeling nature of that interview often catches the person being interviewed off guard. That's the reason not to do it. The downside is if he doesn't do it, they will subpoena him before a grand jury. Well, he will not have his lawyers there whispering in his ear. He'll be totally exposed to the grand jurors and the prosecutors.
But if you have to testify in front of a grand jury, he can say one thing. I'm using my Fifth Amendment rights, and I'm not going to self-incriminate. I'm not going to say anything.
I would advise him to do that. The political fallout will be catastrophic. He can deal with that. But legally, it'll be prophylactic. He'll be absolutely protected.
So you think he could be indicted, but what do you think, what is another likely outcome from Mueller if he finds anything? Well, again, Paul Manafort and the guilty pleas the Mueller team has gotten have nothing to do with collusion with Russia. It's lying to investigators and some fraud prior with Manafort, prior to him working with the Trump campaign.
You're exactly correct. But the fallout from those guilty pleas is to turn those people into government witnesses. Mm-hmm. Rick Gates, Manafort's former business partner and the #2 person in the Trump campaign, has been a treasure trove to Bob Mueller and has opened their eyes to things that happened in the campaign that they otherwise didn't know about. So even though these people do plead guilty to extraneous, often irrelevant crimes, they have knowledge about the target, here the president, that is helpful to the government. They trade that knowledge to the government in return for lesser criminal exposure.
Mueller could also just refer it to Congress, correct?
Yes,
instead of an indictment, or both.
He could indict but agree not to prosecute until after the president leaves office. He could say, I'm not going to indict, I'm going to give it to the Congress. The House of Representatives, whether it's controlled by Republicans or Democrats, depends upon when he gives it and the outcome of the 2018 elections.
And this is all based on the assumption that there is something there. And so far, 1 year anniversary and nothing there. However, I will point out the Senate Intelligence Committee yesterday backed a conclusion that Moscow did attempt to boost the Trump campaign, not collusion, but certainly help Trump based on its interference in the election, which is completely at odds with the House intelligence report.
It's profound that this happened. They each have their own team of investigators. These investigators are sharp cookies. I know some of these folks. Some of them are former NSA, some of them are former FBI, but they're serious, lifelong career criminal investigators. Some work for the Senate, some work for the House, both controlled by the Republicans. Now they come up with opposite conclusions. Devin Nunes' crew says there's no effort of the Russians to get involved. Senator Richard Burr, who runs the Senate Intelligence Committee, says yes. Think of it this way. Bob Mueller indicted 13 Russian entities and people. What did the president do after those indictments came down? Sanctioned all of those people. barred them from using American banks and American corporations. That tells you that the White House agrees with Bob Mueller, what Bob Mueller found. The Senate agrees. The House disagrees.
I want to move on. President Trump's financial disclosure yesterday showed that he did reimburse his lawyer, Michael Cohen, for that $130,000 payment to that adult film performer, Stormy Daniels. And then on top of that, New Yorker Magazine's Ronan Farrow out with a news story last night, and that he tweeted, it's about, there's a whistleblower who he quotes, who leaked the Michael Cohen financial records. He said, this whistleblower says he's stepping forward because records of bigger, potentially more sensitive with more sensitive information are missing from government database. Put this all together.
I have not had the pleasure of meeting Ronan Farrow, but my hat is off to him. This is unbelievably over-the-top, superb investigative journalism. He reveals this morning in the New Yorker that he has a law enforcement source, could be FBI, could be Treasury Department, which looked at Michael Cohen's banking records and said the banks should have reported all this. This is suspicious. This is suspicious. This is suspicious. They only reported 5% of it. I'm going to expose the other 95%.
Judge,
did he violate Michael Cohen's privacy? Yes, he did. Did he do it for a higher good? A court will decide.
But it could be illegal, and it could be.
Yes.
It could be. I mean, it looks like a crime if you're a law enforcement and you leak this information.
On its face, it is illegal. He's claiming the protection of a whistleblower, whoever this federal agent is, and he's claiming the whistleblower protection because, as I said, he served a higher good.
Well,
we don't know how this is going to end up, but we do know this is wreaking havoc on the president and on Michael Cohen because some of these things are incendiary. The amounts of money he was paid to allow his clients to cozy up to the president, not a single one of whom got anywhere near the president. And they paid Michael Cohen millions for this. But
it just looks like more and more, whether you're talking about an Andy McCabe or Jim Comey, that the leakers and the liars are above the law. And that bothers people.
Okay, it does. And I understand that. And they're going to get some relief. You mentioned Andy McCabe. Last night, the Inspector General in the Justice Department revealed his report is done. This is the report on what laws and regulations did the FBI violate in the manner in which it addressed Hillary Clinton's, the allegations against Hillary Clinton, and in the manner in which it investigated the Trump campaign. A few more weeks before that comes out, there's classified material in there that has to be reviewed. If you're quoted in there, listen to this, they let you approve the quotation to make sure you were quoted accurately, but we will soon see this report for which we all have been waiting, probably 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, and then that's why there was that story in the New York Times yesterday about the FBI Trump investigation, which it had falsehoods in it. And again, they're trying to portray themselves like the Boy Scouts. And it's just, again, where's the truth in all this?
When the FBI redacts documents to prevent itself from embarrassment, it causes more embarrassment and harms the reputation of the FBI more. They're human beings. If you made a mistake, admit it. Not always easy to do. I know that, having been in that situation.
I do. I do. If I get something wrong, I'll fall on my sword immediately.
In my prior life, I had an appellate court that used to publicly announce my mistakes.
Thick skin gets us a long way in this life.
Yes.
Judge Andrew Napolitano, so terrific of you
to
walk us all through this. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.